You're listening to the Black Directory podcast, where we focus on bringing Black entrepreneur experiences to the forefront. Each week, we will discuss the highs, the lows, and everything in between. I'm your host, Diamond Young. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to a new episode of the Black Directory podcast. I'm your host, Diamond Young, and I have a very, very special guest today. I have Mr. Jonathan Jones, your podcast mentor. How are you doing?
Woo, woo, woo. I'm good.
Woo, woo.
I'm good. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just so happy that you're here. I'm excited. You're my first podcast guest on the show, so I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself, but I'm excited. It's someone that's like, okay, they understand my world. We can get deep with it. We can be a little nerdy, maybe, if someone wants to call it that, but definitely happy to have you here. And before we get into everything we have planned for today, tell everyone a little bit more about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah. So ultimately, I'm Jonathan Jones, and I am a podcast mentor. So I mean that like that's what I do. I show speakers, coaches, and consultants ultimately how to start a podcast and then how they can monetize it. So that's what I do, and that's what I love.
I love it. I love it. It's so important, the work that you're doing. And I want to tell people how we met. We actually met very recently when I went to the Black Pod Fest in Atlanta. It's just cool the amount of connections that you can make at these events. Like, everyone goes for a different reason. It's like, oh, I want to learn something. I want to learn how to monetize, right? You have those sessions that you're looking forward to. But I may have slept on the connection piece. It's so many people to meet. And yeah, just what was your experience? I kind of recapped it before a few episodes ago, but I just wanted to know what your experience was. Were you able to meet a lot of people and just what you got out of it?
So the Black Podcast Festival was really amazing, and I really enjoyed it. Just like you said, I slept on the connection piece too. I ran into Julian Smart, who I went to high school with, and then it's 10 years, 12 years removed, and I'm like, what? So getting to see each other in that space, but then in addition to that, during like the lunch break, I met a gentleman. He's the owner of a bar in Atlanta. And then I was able to take his connection, and he was trying to do some advertising on some podcasts. I was able to connect him with a client of mine, and then they secured a sponsorship. So I was like, what is going on in here? But the connection's amazing, and it felt like just a family dynamic. It felt like a family reunion. It definitely felt
It
like a
did.
yeah.
It did. I got that same vibe. And I think, I give so much kudos and credit to the Black Pod Collective because I don't think that's necessarily easy. Like, we could want to create that environment, but I don't think it's easy. Like, I remember in the beginning, they were trying to get everyone to get up and dance. And of course, in the beginning, everyone's like, I don't know. But I think everyone just warmed up and it really felt like a family. And I think that's hard to pull off. So shout out to them.
Yeah, I mean, creating an environment where people feel comfortable enough to connect. Because if you don't get the comfortability piece, then people aren't going to connect. So I really love that they made it comfortable, and just with the way they set up the sessions, the way they set up the rooms, and then they're like, ask questions. What questions do we have? And nobody was in a position to where they were like putting themselves above others, but everybody was just in a position to answer questions, to connect, and seeing how we can collaborate. So yeah, great job.
I like to just, especially as someone that was like not a speaker, I'm just there. I like the accessibility, right? I felt like I had access to the speakers. They're blending in. There really wasn't much separation. And you could be sitting with a speaker at your table, not realizing they're about to be speaking at your next session. But I thought that was pretty cool, though. It was just people were coming up to me like, "Are you a speaker?" I'm like, "Not yet. No, not this time." But it was just cool because you didn't know. You really didn't. Yeah, I feel like I couldn't really tell, but I just liked how I could just talk to them as normal, which is how it should be anyways, but just talk with them, connect at your table if they're at your table or, wherever you're just at that time. So I really like that piece. That was something that stood out to me as like, okay, It's not like, hey, I did my speaking thing and I'm out. Like it was some speakers that they didn't speak on day one, but they came day one and they just hung out. They weren't in everybody's session, just taking it in. It seemed like they were learning as well, or I don't know. It didn't seem like a, hey, I'm coming to speak and I'm gone and,
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those events, it does create separation between you and speakers, but just like you said, allowing yourself to see them as a human, and then them being human enough to be willing to connect and to have conversations and not like run off. I think that says a lot about I think that says a lot about the host and the team that put together the conference, because knowing the character and knowing that these speakers and individuals operate with integrity. So, once again, kudos to Ona, kudos to the team, the Black, podcast collective. They held it down for the home team for sure.
They did. And of course, the best part is that it was for Black creators. I think that was cool. I'm kind of new to going to these podcast events, but just from what I heard throughout, I think this was a rare thing, or we're not really, like, you can't really find us at these other events, so it was cool to have something for us. And that seemed to be the part that people loved the most. So yeah, shout out to them for just creating that space for us to even come together. And I can't wait to go back again. But I want to switch gears a little bit and get back to you. So you're the podcast mentor. How did you actually get into podcasting?
So it started from once me doing an interview, right? I was getting interviewed by a friend of mine. His name was Dennis. He was the producer, and then I got interviewed by two young ladies, and their podcast was called The Motive. And after hearing the interview, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And I told Dennis, I was like, "Hey, Dennis, would you like walk me through the process of like starting a pod? What that looks like?" So we met at Starbucks, old school. He had a napkin, and he started writing it down on the napkin. Right, this is an intro. This is where you talk about the content. This is the outro of the show. And after that conversation, I love to say, I just went and got started, but that's not what happened. It got to the point, yeah, you know how it goes. That's not what happened. It got to the point to where I was wanting to get more speaking opportunities because I was speaking at this point. And then after that, then I'm talking with my videographer. His name's Reginald. He's like, "Jonathan, you should start a podcast." And I was like, "Reginald, why would I do that? Why would I do that?" And then, after going home, sleeping on it, the next day I hit him up. I was like, "Reginald, I got a bright idea." He was like, "John, what is it?" I said, "I'm going to start a podcast." He said, "John, I think that's a great idea." So I got to give them credit, Reginald and Dennis. Dennis helped me lay it out. Reginald, putting the battery in my back in a sense. And then from that point, I went to create content to inspire and uplift millennials. So that was where the journey started some time ago. Yeah, some time ago.
I just like how I feel like people are in our lives to plant seeds. I feel like I talk to so many people, and it's always that one part where, not always, most of the time, it's like, okay, I don't know about this. And shout out to people that see like beyond. They're like, no, I can see you doing this. And sometimes things just aren't on our radar at the time. But I don't know. I love when people are just like, instead of keeping it to themselves, they share it. Even if you're like, no, I don't know about this. Sometimes we have to marinate on things a little bit. But it's like, okay, thanks for planting that seed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things to where if you don't believe in yourself enough to do a thing, then you have to borrow the belief of somebody else, and that's what I really love. Yeah.
I like that. But that's so real, though. I like that. It's so real. Because that happened to me before. Recently, I had hosted a podcast workshop, but it started off with the ebook, right? It's like, oh, okay, I've learned all these things from podcasting. Let me put it in some kind of format and just share. I'll always have it. People can always access it. Cool. I really didn't have a plan for what happens after that, but I just had a friend in my ear saying, like, you could really teach on this. You already have the blueprint because you made a book. If you have the book, like, you could always pull from that and teach on that and make content from that. And like, why stop just with the book? And I'm like, I don't know, because she's a teacher, like a school teacher. So for her, it's like she could just see, like, it's almost like you have the curriculum, you have the guide, just teach it. Of course you can always add on and things like that. And I sat on it for maybe a few months, but it stayed with me of like, okay, maybe she was on to something, because you can get nervous if you feel like something isn't your lane or it's new territory. So you're like, oh, I don't know. Like, she's a teacher, she has this. It's like second nature, but for me, I don't know. And long story short, I was able to just do it. I took what she said. I took maybe a mod. I didn't even take too much of the book, just a little bit to have a 1 hour workshop, and I just was like, okay, I'm going to pull out these things. I'm going to teach on this. And it was new territory, but it was just so worth it. And I always thank her, like, thanks for planting that seed with me. I had to sit on it for a little while, but I just never forgot what she said. So
I got you. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's dope to hear. Just to and then I even think it's really amazing because you're able to now really challenge yourself to pour into somebody else the way that she poured into you.
I agree. I agree. And really, I don't know. I think the advice is solid when it comes to someone trying to push you to create a platform because in reality, they're just trying to help you extend your voice. Why keep it here when more people can be impacted? So really it's only for the growth, it's only for larger impact in reality. So I think that's what's cool too, is because okay, let me get it out more so I can help more people. So it all relates, and I think it all connects. But I don't know, I see the bigger picture now of, what, we should all be trying to amplify our voice, grow our platform so we can reach more people to have more impact. So now it's like, okay, I'm hip, I'm ready. What's next? What's next? But I don't know. So shout out to those people. We all have our council or our circle of people that pour into us, so that we can now pour into others. So I think that's was just pretty cool about everything. But I noticed that you mentioned that you were a speaker first. So what was that journey to speaking? Did you always want to be a speaker? Yeah, tell us more about that.
So I won't say I always wanted to be a speaker, but I will say that growing up, my father is an evangelist. So I saw him speaking. Growing up, my mother and my father would always sit us down either before we go to bed or, as we're in the bed and they're reading stories. Bernstein Bears, going through reading stories, Clifford, going through reading all these different stories, all these different books. So I will say that those two planted in me just the knack for storytelling. And that's what I love. That's what I love most about, well, that's the thing I love second most about speaking. The first part is, the ability to connect with people on a real level, right? That's why when I speak, anytime you hear me speak anywhere, you're going to hear multiple failures that I've had because I don't want the audience just to think, oh, John's arrived, because honestly, I have not, right? There's still a lot more that I want to accomplish. There's still many more lives that I desire to impact for the kingdom and for the glory of God. But in addition to that, I want people to know and realize that if I failed the same math class in community college 3 times, if I was the same guy that struggled with there and a period and a comma and where does this go, where does that go, but I wrote 2 books, you can do the same thing too. You just got to know who to put in that place, who's editing. You can't edit if you struggle with writing. Anyway, you asked where the speaking. So the speaking started. Well, that's where it was implanted with the storytelling with my parents, and then I went to my community college after I graduated, probably like 2 years, and I'm like, I want to speak. And I was like, John, well, what are you going to speak about? I said, I don't know, but I want to speak. And from that point, they gave me an opportunity to work with the Male Achievement Program at Richland College. Shout out to Gabe Randall. And then we took my first book and I began to just break down chapters, and we would do sessions around the chapters, assisting these young men with just some essential, tangible tools to, position them for career success.
No, and I love what you were saying about failures. I think that's something that I can be a little bit of a perfectionist, and I'm sure other people can relate. And it's like we try to avoid that at all costs, and that has its pros and cons because sometimes that means you don't get started, maybe because you're trying to make something perfect and you're trying to kind of like dodge, dodge and matrix vibe and dodge the failures. Like, oh no. But I wanted to ask you, if you can think of it, what's one of the biggest, what you would call maybe a failure or a mistake, whatever, a challenge? What's one of the biggest failures you had that you thought you wouldn't come back from? Where you're like, I just don't want to do this again. You want to hide under a rock, maybe.
That's a great
What's
question.
something you're like, I don't know about this, or where had you doubting yourself? Like maybe this isn't my lane, or maybe, yeah,
Yeah, well, it's not speaker related necessarily, but it makes me think of like it's kind of like when you're a kid in like middle school and like you have a crush on a girl. For me, it's like you had a crush, and then you have this super big crush, and then they either say they don't like you or they break up with you, and you're like, I'm never gonna recover from this. This is the worst day of my life. And then 2 weeks later, a new girl comes like, oh, well, maybe it's not the, hey, we're all right. So ultimately, I want to say that because what's happened for me is I've been fired multiple times because this was when I had a character flaw. This was when I was at Publix and I was hooking people up with groceries, and then I got fired for that. Then I went to Finish Line, and then I was doing something I had no business doing. Then I got fired for that. So these moments were probably some of the most intense moments of my life because of the fact that when I went upstairs and I'm talking to Bob over at Loss Prevention, and he's asking me, John, would you rather work with the guy who's sliding the shrimp in the cooler but he lies about it, or the guy who slides shrimp in the cooler and he tells you the truth? And I'm like, well, of course I want to work with the guy who tells me the truth. As he kind of walked me down the path of confessing, I was like, okay, I stole, I did it, I'm guilty. He sent me home, and then I'm sitting on the couch, and then my dad comes in. He's like, "Son, you don't have to work today." And I was like, "No, Dad, I don't gotta work today."
right.
But the moral of the story was just understanding that, like, when I make a bad decision, I have to apply what I learn going forward. I didn't do that multiple times in my life, but it's just, okay, I made the mistake. Now, how can we move forward? I made the mistake. How can we move forward differently? So now, anytime I go through a store, or if I know somebody that works at a store or a restaurant, they're trying to hook me up, I'm like, no, I don't want that. I'm gonna pay for it. I don't, no, I'm gonna pay for it. I'm gonna pay for it. So,
You're like, never again. I'm not going back.
no, I can't. It was just bad. It was bad because, Diamond, this is one thing we all have to understand. Everybody is quick to say, I'm not a leader, people don't follow me, or whatever we want to say. But whoever you are, there's somebody who's following behind your steps, watching what you do, and mimicking your behavior. Therefore, when I made that bad decision, I took like 3 or 4 people down with me. I'm not sure who started off with the idea, but we all started doing the thing. And that's the part where it's really dangerous. But the benefit is it works both ways. Because if we're doing positive, constructive things, somebody's still following you and watching you do that as well. So we want to begin to gear what we're doing to the positive so that people can benefit and grow versus taking these people to hell in a handbasket is the best way I can say it.
No, I see so much just growth and accountability, just you going through your story and what happened. And I don't know, it's just interesting to think that we all have different paths that we can take in life. And luckily for you, you were able to see like, okay, wait a minute. I can't continue to do these kind of things or make these kind of decisions because it's just going to have crazy consequences down the road, and no telling what path that could take us on. Just trying to take shortcuts, really, is what it sounds like, taking shortcuts, doing things the other kind of way. And it's just like, and sometimes you just don't get it in the moment, but it just seems like you were able to take it. Like you said, it's a different kind of example, but it really becomes your core system and values throughout time now to where you're like, okay, wait a minute. Like you said, character flaw, like, okay, who is looking at me? And a lot of times we don't think people are really looking at us. Like you were saying, it's just like no one cares. It's not going to impact things. It's whatever. So I think that's interesting that you just were able to learn that early, and that you didn't let it take you off the path totally to where you didn't feel worthy of the things that you're doing now. You were, what I'm saying, writing a book and impacting others and creating your own platform. It's like our past doesn't have to define us unless we kind of wear that label, right? And just carry that on our shoulder. So I think that's what's interesting too. Like we've all made mistakes, but it's kind of like how we heal from that, and if we decide to carry that, is on us, is what I think. It's
True.
really on us from there.
This is
It's like,
true.
okay. Because a lot of times, sometimes our biggest critic is ourselves. We can be the hardest person on us of like, I don't know, just having that voice in your head of just the things you've done, or am I qualified to do this thing? What makes me the person that can do this? So I'm sure I would think you went through that as you were kind of growing and finding your way with speaking, and what you're doing now is like did you ever have that like imposter syndrome, or just feeling like I don't know if I'm the one to deliver this message or write this book? Or
Yeah, well, I mean, for one, with the short answer, yes. So in terms of writing my first book, I didn't think I had it in me before I wrote the book until sitting there talking with my father, and he's the one who helped me understand that if I'm in eighth grade, I can teach somebody in sixth grade how to get here. If I'm in high school, I can teach somebody in middle school how to get to high school and how to do that successfully. So that was the way my dad helped me understand that. The tangible way he really helped me understand it was he charged me $5,000. So my dad was my first professional development coach, and I hired him. He helped me write the book, launch the book, help the book become a bestseller. So in terms of that, with the book, he helped me tremendously. In terms of with the speaking, I can remember maybe like 3 years ago, to where I was at the University of Louisiana Monroe, and I walk in, I see my picture on the screens, and I see all these students, and I started getting like the butterflies, and I'm like, man, like it's humbling, because like this is an amazing opportunity. I've never been in a space to where there's been this many students. Like this is super cool. But then the other part is like, yeah, how do I know what I'm going to share is going to resonate? How do I know that I have the best message, and how do I know this? So just going through those questions, and I think that's the point in the time to where we have to really understand how credible each and every one of us are in one area, right? There's one area to where you can help somebody solve a problem. No matter where you are, no matter how old you are, there's at least one area. If you're 5, you can show a kid how to tie a shoe. If you're 55, you can show somebody how to set up Social Security or retirement or whatever. But we have to just lean into that one area and be like, okay, I can do this. And I can do this because of the preparation I put in, because of the experiences that I've had from stealing and from doing this and from identifying core values, like you said. And then we take that, and then that's the presentation. Because if you don't give an authentic presentation, the audience will know, the audience will not connect with it, and then your influence to impact more people will not grow. Like your legacy will be affected. So we got to be authentic, we got to be real, and then rock on from there.
no, that's some real stuff, and I think I'm seeing it on social media too. Like now, it's competitive if you want to stand out on social media, because people can sense when it's not authentic. It's like you can just feel it of like, this feels fake, or this doesn't feel real enough. Like I don't feel connected to this person. Everything is perfect all the time. I don't know. I think people can sense that stuff now. Like, especially now that everyone's creating content, everyone's trying to put people, puts their content in front of people. It's kind of like, I don't know. Are you saying that as well online?
Well, I mean, and that's why I said lean into your one area, because it will be so if let's say me and you were both going toe to toe, and you're saying I'm the best podcast coach, and I'm saying I'm the best podcast coach, who's judging that? And what's that judged according to? Is it based on how many episodes you put out? Is it based on how long you've been doing it? Is it based on what you talk about? Or or you craft your specific niche in the respective area, and then I craft mine. That like that's why, and shout out to Ariel Young, because she helped me really hone this in. She was like, John, you do the best job of developing podcasters, not just showing people how to start, how to launch, how to monetize, because we've seen that everywhere. But that is really the thing that I do. Like I love helping people get clear on the purpose of their podcast. I like helping people identify, what are the main points that you want to discuss on your show. So it's just finding the one thing that's not new, right? It's not new, but you just do it in your unique way. So that's what I encourage people to do. And the best example I can give is, so we're out in Miami, and there's this place. I think it's like Mr. Zero One's Pizza. They make pizza in the shape of a star.
Okay.
Never seen it before in my life.
Right.
But one pizza, we saw it on like the train, and then later we're looking for somewhere to eat. Then we find it because we remember the pizza that was a star. So then we tried it. We enjoyed it. I'm like, man, this pizza is good. It's not nothing new. It's just doing it in its own unique way.
Putting your
So
touch on it, your stamp on it.
yeah, what's your touch? What's your tweak? But that's what I say for people. Dude, find your thing on social media. Is it going live? Is it posting the quotes? Is it doing the reels a certain way from the kitchen table? Whatever. Just do that and connect with people right there.
No, I think that's real. Because I know for some people, they want to get into, like, they may not be in podcasting, but they just want to get out there and they're nervous. They're scared. I noticed that from the conference. I noticed that from the festival. People, we had that one session where everyone had to post their reel. Like, she made them make a reel in the class and post it, and people were terrified. Oh my God. Like, people were so scared. And I think we have to get to that point where, if that's your lane and you want to market and get into the content, it could be video form or whatever. But I think it's just, we have to get comfortable with ourselves and realize that we all have, like you said, like something special or a certain way we may deliver it. When we go to the grocery store, we see so many products. There's so many different brands of bread and all these, juices and cereal. Half of them are owned by the same companies, but still, the point is, the point is, it's always gonna feel like someone else is already talking about this. Someone else is already doing this. What am I going to say that's different? And we have to just believe that just our delivery alone is going to be different than someone else's. The way our tone is, our voice, do we tell jokes and find humor in the way that we deliver our message? Are we more empathetic and it's more of, I don't know, some people may have a spoken word kind of vibe going on where they just deliver it in a way where you just stop and listen. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like, let me play that again. Because some people they just have a poetic kind of vibe going on. And it's just, I think it's us trying to figure out how to embrace who we are. And maybe it starts with getting to know who you are. Sometimes you have to take it a step back. But I don't know. I think that's going to be everyone's superpower. It's like, okay, what makes me me? And I think it is hard when, of course, you see the numbers and you're like, but I didn't get a lot of likes, or, you kind of get caught up in that kind of vibe. But I think consistency, like, of course you can course correct, but I think consistency overall, people have to see you show up for yourself before they decide to invest in you, is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I would say consistency and sharing your story, because me and you can go to the same high school. Me and you both can be women. Me and you both can graduate from the same place, got the same grades in every class. We would both have two different experiences of our high school and of those classes. So sharing your story, and the more consistent you are sharing your story, the more people will be able to connect with your story.
I agree. I agree. And I think that's where the real change begins, when people see that human side to you or your brand and feel like, oh, wow, I can get behind that. I can connect with that. So I agree with you. But I want to switch gears for a little bit and go back to speaking and then your book. So I think a lot of people may be wondering, say they want to be a speaker, right? They're listening. How do I make money from this? How do I get to the part where this is something that I want to do? What is possible, right? What could be my roadmap? How can people get paid to speak? What has been your experience, or what's been working for you?
Yeah, so the first thing is to speak. So wherever you find the opportunity, I was telling my mentorship group this the other day. I was suggesting to them that if you can't book the speaking engagement to be like the main speaker or to be a speaker, period, then become an MC. Because if you're an MC, then you're in front of more people and more people are getting to know you, more people are getting to connect with you. And if you MC anywhere, if you do anything well enough, people will eventually pay you for it. In terms of speaking, I want people just to think and identify what is a problem that I can solve, or what is a problem that I can help people solve quicker or faster. Amazon is so valuable because they have Prime. I can order something right now and get it today or maybe tomorrow because he's not doing anything new, he's just doing it quicker. So therefore, speakers, coaches, and consultants, I would encourage them, if they want to be a speaker, they're starting from square one, they're like, I don't know what to speak about, I don't know what I cover. Look at your resume and see where you have time, right? Let's say you've done your job for 15. I was talking with Mr. Ernie at the Black Podcast Festival. He said if somebody asked him to speak, he said he would charge him $25,000. And I said, why would you charge him $25,000? And then he said, because he has X amount of years experience in this field. Then I said, well, if you help a multi-million-dollar company save $1 million, I think it would be in their best interest to at least give you 25,000 because you helped them save $1 million. So, if we can save people money, if we can save people time, and if we can solve their problem, that right there is a way that you can definitely begin to, start that. Well, identify those things, and then you can begin to see, well, where will your service best be plugged in? Would it be a church? Would it be a school? Would it be nonprofit?
No, but say someone does some research, right? And they're like, okay, I think I want to go after these 3 companies or these 3 organizations. I see an opportunity. I think my message will resonate with, say, their employees or whatever it is. How should someone go about pitching? Like, how do you put yourself out there, I guess, right? Like, what are the steps? And it may be steps before you even talk to someone or pitch to someone. And then you may have things of like, okay, how do you navigate that space when you are in conversation with someone? Because there's so many scenarios. You have a scenario where you may see someone in the elevator, right? They always talk about that elevator pitch and you don't have much time and, you're just trying to lock in a meeting. You have situations where you've set up the meeting, or you have people that they're like, I'm not in either of those places. I have the people in mind. What do I do next? So let's start there. What would someone do next? Like, they identified a business or organization and they want to shoot their shot, basically.
Well,
How
okay.
should they do that?
Yeah, excellent question. So I like to use LinkedIn because the next step after you get those first 3 pieces, like I said, the next step would be, now you have to identify who is the decision maker, aka the gatekeeper, right? So who is the person that brings in the speakers? Who is the person that determines if you should speak at this company or not? Then when you figure out that person, you wanna make a touch point, a connection, and you want to get on a call with them. And this can be a drawn out process at times. Sometimes it can be a quick turnaround. But what I do, I connect with people I don't know on LinkedIn all the time. I find something unique on their profile. I say, hey, Diamond, and I say like I know you. I'm like, Diamond, oh my goodness, I didn't know that you had the Black directory going on. I would love to learn more about that and love to learn more about you. You accept my connection, then I schedule a call with you. I'm like, hey, Diamond, go ahead. I'd love to hear more about your story. I let you share your story. And for me personally, I say, well, if you have any questions for me, please let me know. But if not, I don't want to take too much of your time. Sometimes people be like, all right, well, I don't have any questions. Take care. But then other times they will have, if you connect on LinkedIn, they'll more than likely look at your profile. So then they will have a question potentially for you. They might say, well, what do you do? And that's when you need to have it down what you do, so that they know so that they know, so you can communicate that clearly to them, so that you can be at least considered. Because more likely than not, people are not going to hire you just off of a whim of a one call. It can happen, yes, but what we have to understand is that those people who are the gatekeepers, their credibility and their trust is tied to the speaker that they bring in. So therefore, they want to vet you out first. They want to meet you. They want to know, what do you do? Then as you tell them what you do and as you continue to stay connected with them over time, LinkedIn, email, whatever it might be, then over time, the opportunity will come, right? You can even pitch them on the call. Before you get off, you can say, hey, you have like 2 minutes, I want to show you something. And then run them through a presentation that you can do. Like, hey, I talked with this university about this, and then walk through the content. But that would be what I'd say, right? Because if people never know what you do, then they can never hire you for it. So you have to get the relationship first. You have to connect with them to let them know that you're a person and that they're a person. They're not just a number, they're not just a check, they're not just a gig. But then after we do that, then we come over here and then we show them what we do, right? This is how I can help your company. I know that you know, you all are struggling right now in production. I can assist because I spoke with the team over at the Black Directory, and I helped them increase their performance last week, and I'd love to do the same for you. Then they might say, "Oh, okay," and then you can have a conversation from there. But once again, that relationship is essential because, like I said, the trust and the credibility of who is brought in is reflected on the person who's the gatekeeper or the decision maker.
So, last question, kind of based on something you said. Do you think it's ideal, and I'm guessing the answer is yes, but ideal to leverage, oh, well, I've also did this work with this other company that's like similar, you like bringing in what you did for someone else, basically. Okay.
It's
Okay.
it's essential because if you're the person who's never spoke before and then you get one speaking engagement, you want to leverage that to get the second one. Then you want to leverage the first and second one to get the third, and then you want to keep replicating the process, just to show one what you've done for other people, but two, you want to make sure that you're creating a paper trail.
I like that because I would think it would get their attention of like, oh wait, you did this for our competitor or someone else in in their same
Mhm.
industry or
Mhm.
okay, so that's cool. I thought that, but I noticed that you mentioned that twice, and I'm like, okay, I think that's important then to hey, especially when you're in the beginning, you're just getting started. You may not have a great pitch deck or one page, like you're trying to build those things, and it's like, well, actually, yeah, I did this cool project with this company or this cool, it depends on what it is, but okay, I like that. Leverage the accomplishments that you have, and because that could be the one thing that changes the conversation of like, oh, tell us more.
Hmm. Yes, it could. You leverage your experience, leverage your accomplishments, leverage other speaking opportunities that you've done. And once again, that's why I say be an MC. Because if you're an MC is also still a speaker. You have the opportunity. You were holding the mic. If you're holding the mic, you're a speaker. Period. I mean,
Period.
people can people can debate it if they want to. I'm not going to argue. But one thing I do know is that if your foot is never in the door, then you can never be in the room. So therefore, you want to get a foot in the door. If you kind of like when the door is kind of shutting and then you're running, you try to squeeze a toe in there just to hold it. That still counts because you get a toe in there, then you get the rest of yourself in there.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been amazing. I know so many people are going to take away so many good things, especially if they're on a journey of either podcasting or speaking or no matter what they're doing. I think they're going to take away just how to show up, how to be authentic. And I'm just so excited. So I want you to tell everyone like what's coming up for you, what's next, and how can we support you?
Yeah. So what's coming up? Uh, so I just recently partnered with a corporation or with a collaborative. I'm not sure what would you consider. Anyway, so the conference
A
is called
partnership, collaboration.
the conference is called the Athletes Unite Conference, and
Ooh.
Classy James she's the curator of this experience, and she's now a new client of mine because we're doing a limited time, limited edition, limited series podcast for the conference. So that's coming up.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
So that's coming up, and we're promoting the event in July. It's going to be in Atlanta, and it's geared to people who are, these were former athletes, and now they're looking for work and looking to transition. There's going to be internship opportunities there, people hiring there. So that's what's coming up. And then ways that people, if they're looking to start a podcast, or they're looking to start as a speaker or start as a coach or consultant, they can get my new book, Get Paid with Podcasting, where it walks through everything, how to start, manage, monetize a podcast, and all that. They can get it for free. It's just at getpaidwithpodcasting.com/book. Might need to put www in front of it, but getpaidwithpodcasting.com/book. And yeah, I mean, that's how people can support themselves. I'd say that, because
I
not
like
necessarily
that.
supporting me. The book is free; they just cover shipping. But how can people support me? Sharing your voice, sharing your story. We need more people that look like you, Diamond, and that look like me in this space. And this is an industry that's projected to hit $94 billion by 2028. I'm just gonna start calling it $100 billion business, because, I mean, that's what it is. There's gonna be people creating platforms and apps and different things like that. So we need to be in the forefront of this, because when we speak, we shift the culture, and we need to understand that and understand our value, and therefore share our voice and share our stories.
Yes. Amen. I think we need to leverage that. The stats are just crazy, but I think that's the biggest stat that I heard that I'm like, whoa, like there's so much growth in this space. So yeah, if you're listening and you're thinking about it, just do it, or at least get the free book, at least tune in, watch the videos. And, we have so much content with our Instagrams and these platforms. It's really a lot of short nuggets, but it's enough to inform someone of like, okay, is this something that I'm interested in? Let me invest more. Let me read more. Let me research more. So I think that's just where it starts. So I'm going to include all this good stuff in the show notes, as well as his Instagram. That way you can check out his page, just get a sense of what's going on, and check out his links from there. And yeah, I'm just super excited and happy to see all the things that you're doing. And it's been just such a pleasure having you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I'm encouraged just seeing you do this podcast, and just really being intentional about your audience, and really being intentional about nurturing them and serving them. So, audience, if you have not left a rating, right? If you haven't left a rating
Yes.
on Spotify, leave a rating. Leave a rating on the show is really helpful. If you haven't wrote a review, but you're like, oh my goodness, Diamond is so good. Oh my goodness, I really enjoyed Diamond's show. Oh my goodness. I want y'all to do me a favor. Send her a DM, and be like, Diamond, this episode changed my life because of blank, right? So you can do that. Or if you want to go for extra credit, you can write the Apple review. You can write the review out, give it 5 stars, screenshot it, and then DM it to her, because it's going to bless her, and it's going to bless so many other people, because the way that podcasts really get to expand is by when people share them. So share it. If you got value, share it with your brother, share it with your sister, share it with whoever that needs the episode. But that's my TED Talk. That's my rant.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you for spending some time with us. Enjoying the show? Be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating and review. Interested in connecting with Black-owned businesses and joining the family? We got you covered. Download Black Directory in both the iOS and Android app stores. Until next time.